It's Medicosis Perfectionalis continuing our biology discussion about the digestive system. In the last video we talked about the stomach. Today we'll talk about the small intestine, enzymes of the small intestine, hormones of the small intestine, motility of the small intestine, secretions of the small intestine. We got all kinds of intestines. So let's get started. This is my biology playlist. Please watch these videos in order. Let's start by answering the question of the previous video. Two persons, A and B, received the same amount of glucose. Person A received it orally, but person B received it intravenously. The question is, which person will have a higher blood insulin level? And the answer is person A. Why is this? First of all, let me tell you why insulin is going to go up in both of them, and then I'll tell you why it's gonna go up more in person A. So the first part, why is it going up in both of them? Because when glucose enters into your body, eventually it will reach the blood, which will eventually reach the beta cells of the pancreas, which stimulates insulin release. Why? Because insulin has one purpose in life, to lower your blood sugar. How? By making that glucose leave the blood and go into the cell. Alright, so when glucose reaches your blood, regardless of the route, insulin will go up. Alright. Now, why is it going up more in person A? Because person A took it orally, which means it went to the gut of person A, unlike person B, which went straight to the blood, skipping the digestive tract. But person A took that glucose orally, which means it's going to stimulate the gastrointestinal system to release what? One of the GI hormones known as GIP, glucose-dependent insulinotropic peptide. Glucose dependent, I get it. Insulinotropic. Insulinotropic means to grow. Oh, to increase the release of insulin. Yes. And what's the nature of this doofus? It's a peptide, just like every other GI hormone. GIP went up only in person A, but not in person B. As you know, your diet consists of carbohydrate, protein, or fat. When you eat carbohydrate, you eat big things such as starch, such as glycogen. And then we gotta break them down. Break them down into what? Into smaller molecules such as maltose, lactose, sucrose, etc. Then you digest them and break them down even further into glucose, fructose, galactose. These monosaccharides are very small. You can absorb these, alright? How about proteins? We start big with proteins. Then you digest them and break them down into polypeptides, and then oligopeptides, and then dipeptides, and then peptides, and then amino acids. You will be able to absorb the amino acids. Fat, you start with big fats. This is what you eat, triglycerides. And then we break them down into free fatty acids and glycerol. I say glycerol tongue-in-cheek. It's actually monoglyceride and diglyceride, not actual glycerol. Note that the pancreas alone can complete digestion from A to Z. The pancreas has pancreatic amylase to digest carbohydrate. Your pancreas secretes pancreatic lipase and colipase and phospholipase to digest fat. Moreover, the pancreas can secrete, ready? Trypsin, chymotrypsin, carboxypeptidase to digest proteins. And you know from biochemistry that proteins will give you 4 calories for each gram. Carbohydrate is also 4. Ethanol or alcohol is 7. But fat is the highest, 9 calories for every gram of fat you consume. Regardless of what the flip you do to yourself, eventually all of this will end up as acetyl-CoA. Enters into the tricarboxylic acid cycle or Krebs cycle to make energy. Got some oxidative phosphorylation action going. This is internal respiration and internal digestion. Hey Medicosis, can you give me examples of some carbohydrates that I eat? Here are the examples. How about proteins? Well, you eat proteins, whether from an animal source or a plant source. You can also eat fat. Don't forget, fat-soluble vitamins are soluble in fat, so we treat them just like we treat fat. What are these fat-soluble vitamins? K, E, D, and A. Keda, which in Arabic means thumbs up, at least in the Egyptian dialect. How about vitamin B and vitamin C? No, those are water-soluble vitamins. Back to our review from head to toe. As you know from previous videos, the mouth has mechanical digestion and chemical. What do you mean by mechanical? Motility, mastication. How about chemical? I mean salivation. We have salivary amylase and some salivary lipase. Review your major salivary glands, please. The mouth did its job. The saliva digested some carbohydrate from starch into maltose or dextrin. Starch in plants is equivalent to glycogen in animals. And then you digest them into smaller maltose and dextrin. Mix all of this with saliva. The end result is a bolus that's going to leave the mouth and goes to the oropharynx. The mouth sends it to the pharynx, which sends it to the esophagus, which eventually puts it into the stomach. The stomach was the story of the last video. Please pause and review. Don't forget mechanical and chemical, motility and secretion. Secretion is of what? Of GI enzymes, such as pepsinogen, which becomes pepsin, and GI hormones, such as gastrin from the G cells. But pepsinogen was from the chief cells. Moreover, we have HCl from the parietal cells. Don't forget, intrinsic factor is intrinsic to the stomach. It's intrinsic to the parietal cells. It's intrinsic to your ability to absorb vitamin B12 in the terminal ileum. And the mucous glands secrete, guess what? Mucus. Let's also review the pancreas. You have endocrine pancreas, insulin, glucagon, somatostatin, and exocrine pancreas. Not hormones, but actual freaking digestive enzymes, such as trypsin, chymotrypsin, carboxypeptidase, lipase, colipase, cholesterol esterase, etc. In order for me to boost the secretion of digestive enzymes from the pancreatic acinus, which is part of the exocrine pancreas, I need to call upon CCK, which comes from the eye cells, if you remember. But if I want to secrete water and bicarbonate into the duodenum to neutralize the acidity coming from the stomach in the duodenum, I will need to call upon secretin, which comes from the S cells in the upper part of small intestine, and it's going to stimulate the duct of the pancreas, not the acinus, but the duct, to secrete water and bicarbonate. When the digestive enzymes come from the pancreatic acinus, especially those who digest proteins, they have to come in an inactive form. So not trypsin yet, but trypsinogen, which is inactive. Who's gonna activate trypsinogen into trypsin, an enzyme that comes from the duodenum? Otherwise, the pancreas will digest itself. That will be crazy. We gotta wait until we leave the pancreas and we go to the duodenum where we find the food so we can digest the food, not the actual flippin' pancreas. Quick review on the GI hormones that we talked about before. Gastrin, where did you come from? From the G cells in the stomach, especially the gastric antrum. I also come from the upper part of the small intestine, partially. And then I act upon the stomach musculosa and the stomach submucosa. Why musculosa? For motility. Why submucosa? To boost secretion. And by the way, I am the only GI hormone that is pro-stomach. I am pro-gastric motility. I am pro-gastric secretion. All the other GI hormones are anti-stomach, i.e., they decrease gastric motility and lower gastric secretions. Next, secretin. Where did you come from? From the S cells in the upper part of small intestine. I act upon the pancreas. Endocrine or exocrine? Exocrine. Acinus or duct? Duct cells. To secrete what? Water and bicarbonate. To go into what? To the duodenum. Why? To neutralize the HCl, the acidic bolus, dumped on me by the stomach, to make the duodenal pH alkaline so that the enzymes can actually work in the duodenum, because all of the enzymes in your body work in an alkaline medium except freaking pepsin. Next, CCK, cholecystokinin pancreozymin. Why do you call me cholecystokinin? Because I'm a peptide that is going to move and squeeze the gallbladder, cholecyst. Gallbladder. The cyst that's near the liver. The cyst that has bile. Cholecyst. Gallbladder. And then when I squeeze the gallbladder, it releases bile into the duodenum, which is gonna help me with the emulsification of fat. I have another name, pancreozymin. Why? Because I am a peptide that increases the enzymes from the exocrine pancreas, because I stimulated the acinar cells. Whether I talk to the pancreas or talk to the gallbladder, eventually all of these lovely secretions will reach the duodenum. They will help you digest the food and therefore absorb it down the road. Don't forget that somatostatin is a universal inhibitor. It inhibits everything. It even inhibits its own secretion. Now let's talk about a wonderful mnemonic thanks to Ellie from New York. First, you iron your clothes. Then you fold them, then you put them in the closet. This is the steps of absorption. First part is iron, because iron is absorbed proximally. Here, first part, duodenum. And then folate is in the jejunum, which is after the duodenum. And then we have cobalamin, which is vitamin B12, absorbed in the terminal ileum. Don't forget that if I have deficiency of one of these, I can get anemia. Iron deficiency anemia is microcytic. Folate deficiency anemia is macrocytic. Cobalamin deficiency is also macrocytic. What's the difference between folate deficiency and B12 deficiency? Folate is just anemia. But B12 deficiency is anemia plus neurological symptoms, such as ataxia, peripheral neuropathy, even paralysis, and worse, dementia. Now to the small intestine, which is today's topic: mechanical, chemical, and absorption. Let me ask you a question. Does the stomach actually absorb anything? Well, yes, but of course it is in no way close to the intestine. If you know what the stomach does absorb, let me know the answer in the comments, please. Mechanical function of the small intestine: motility. You mean peristalsis? Yes. Myenteric? Absolutely. Which is in the musculosa? True. Cranial nerve 10, which is the vagus, will stimulate it because it's parasympathetic. Sympathetic will inhibit it. That's right. Next, chemical. What do you mean? Secretions by the submucosa and mucosa and submucosal plexus. True. Also stimulated by parasympathetic and inhibited by sympathetic. That's true. Secretions of what? GI enzymes and GI hormones. Give me examples of these hormones. Cholecystokinin. Oh, I know that. Cholecystokinin, pancreasymin. Squeeze the gallbladder. Increase pancreatic enzyme secretion. How about secretin? Increase pancreatic duct secretion for water and bicarbonate. How about somatostatin? Universal inhibitor. Let's talk about the GI enzymes then. We have enzymes to digest carbohydrates such as maltase, isomaltase, lactase, and sucrase. Maltase for maltose, isomaltase for isomaltose, lactase to digest lactose, and sucrase to digest sucrose. For proteins, you have aminopeptidase and enteropeptidase. Oh, I love it. They have the peptide in them. Maltase will digest maltose into 2 molecules of glucose. How about isomaltase? It will digest isomaltose. Easy peasy. How about lactase? It will digest lactose into glucose and galactose. Oh, I get it now. How about sucrase? To digest sucrose into glucose and fructose. Lactose is found in milk. Sucrose is sugar cane. All of this was carbohydrate digestion. Now let's turn our attention to protein digestion. Aminopeptidase and enteropeptidase. Aminopeptidase. I break down those peptides into tiny amino acids. How about enteropeptidase? Same thing. Why do they call you entero? Because I come from the intestine. And entero means intestine. True. Moreover, enteropeptidase has another function: to activate trypsinogen into trypsin and to activate procarboxypeptidase into carboxypeptidase. Where did the trypsinogen come from? From the pancreas. Where did the procarboxypeptidase come from? Also from the exocrine pancreas. Hey medicosis, how about fat? Well, if you want to digest fat, you will need lipase from the pancreas, colipase from the pancreas, phospholipase from the pancreas, cholesterol esterase from the pancreas, and you will need bile from the liver, which is stored in the gallbladder. Oh, and I'll need the help of the GI hormone CCK, cholecystokinin, pancreasymin? Absolutely. After you break down those lipids, you package them in Amazon packages? No, chylomicron packages. All right, lipid droplets are in the center, surrounded by proteins, and then we'll send them to lymph vessels, known as lacteals, inside the villi, which line the wall of your small intestine. Why do you send them to lymph? Because lymph will clean all of this junk that you just ate and will send pure, lovely fluid back to the circulation. The distinction between lymph and chyle was discussed before in my video on the lymph nodes and the lymphatic system in this biology playlist. Now let's make it relevant. Clinical ties. I'll tell you about some diseases. In a nutshell, we have lactose intolerance, celiac disease, folate deficiency, vitamin B12 deficiency, and vitamin K. So let's go. First, lactose intolerance. What's the cause? I do not have lactase, or my lactase is not enough. Therefore what? I cannot digest lactose, which is found in milk. That's why every time the patient drinks milk, this milk cannot be digested, and as you know, no cash, no problem. No digestion, no absorption. Lactose will remain and linger and stay in the intestine, causing two disasters. Disaster number one, lactose is sweet. Oh, it is sugar. It will attract bacteria because bacteria loves your sweetness. Bacteria will remain in your gut, producing methane and all kinds of gases, and you will be farting like crazy. Of course, doctors try to be professional, so they do not say the patient farted. Instead, they say the patient passed flatus. The patient had flatulence action. Disaster number two. This is sugar, osmotically active. It's going to attract water. You'll have tons of sugar and water in your gut, causing diarrhea. What kind of diarrhea? Secretory diarrhea? Shut up. Osmotic diarrhea. So every time you drink milk, you will spend the rest of the day in the bathroom if you have lactose intolerance, aka lactase enzyme deficiency. Next, celiac disease. You know those lovely normal villi and microvilli that line the wall of your intestine? Yeah, they get destroyed. By whom? By an autoimmune disease. How come? Your B lymphocytes become plasma cells which secrete antibodies against your own cells. Autoantibodies. Against who specifically? Against the intestinal mucosa. And that's why instead of having lovely villi that look like this, your villi will be flattened like this. Can this absorb anything? The answer is no, you cannot absorb anything. And that's why every time the patient eats those trigger or precipitating factors, which is wheat, specifically gluten, particularly gliadin, it can trigger this autoimmune disease, causing all kinds of symptoms, including malabsorption. And don't forget Ellie's mnemonic. Where is iron absorbed at? Duodenum. Oh, if my duodenum is toast, do you think I'll be able to absorb iron? No. That's why patients with celiac disease will suffer from iron deficiency anemia. Moreover, these B lymphocytes will linger just underneath those flattened villi in the crypts of leprechaun, and they will cause hyperplasia because basically this area is full of lymphocytes, intraepithelial lymphocytosis, and even increased risk of lymphoma. How do we manage patients with celiac disease? Avoid the trigger. Unfortunately, many people think that celiac disease is just allergy. No, it is way worse. Here is Ellie's mnemonic. Iron is absorbed in the duodenum, folate is in the jejunum, cobalamin is in the terminal ileum. Next, folate deficiency. But before the deficiency, let's talk about normal folate. By the way, I have a whole video about folate on my biochemistry playlist. Folate comes from green leafy vegetables. Folate helps us make DNA and divide the cell, and that's how you grow and multiply. But if I'm taking phenytoin, which is an anti-seizure medication, or if I'm a raging alcoholic or taking oral contraceptive pills, folate will not be absorbed in the jejunum, and that's why I will not be able to divide my cells, including the cells in my bone marrow, causing anemia. Besides B12, what else is needed to divide my cells? Vitamin B12. We talked about vitamin B12 before. Remember, we need intrinsic factor from the stomach, particularly the parietal cells, and then we will go with vitamin B12. You have vitamin B12 plus the intrinsic factor together until they get absorbed in the terminal ileum. So, what are the causes of vitamin B12 deficiency? Maybe you're not eating it. Maybe you have salivary gland problems. Maybe you have a stomach problem. Maybe you have a pancreas problem. Maybe you have destroyed all the bacteria in your gut. Maybe you removed the terminal ileum because you had severe Crohn's disease. Or maybe that you cannot store the vitamin B12 in your liver. Vitamin B and vitamin C are water soluble, but vitamins D, K, E, and A are lipid soluble. So treat them like lipid. If I want to absorb lipid, I need 3 organs to be healthy. Number 1, liver. Number 2, pancreas. Number 3, the gut, where the absorption actually takes place. And therefore, if I'm not eating enough vitamin K, or I'm taking something else that interferes with vitamin A, or if I have a liver disease, or biliary disease, or pancreatic disease, or I'm taking too many antibiotics for a very long period of time, regardless of the cause, I can suffer from vitamin K deficiency, which causes bleeding. Because as you know, vitamin K is vital to activate those coagulation factors particularly factors 2, 7, 9, and 10. The normal function of vitamin K is to activate those clotting factors. If I cannot clot, I bleed. That's vitamin K deficiency. Moreover, vitamin K is important to mineralize bone. If I cannot do this, if I have deficiency, I'll get bone fractures. Third, vitamin K is important to decrease calcification of soft tissue, to protect soft tissue. If I have deficiency of vitamin K, I'll get calcification of soft tissue. And did you see my brand new course about surgery high yields? It's available on my website, medicosisperfectionalis.com. It comes with 15 videos, 15 PDFs, 100 questions and answers known as Medicosis Couch Potato, where you're supposed to lie on the couch and just listen to these 100 questions and answers, 20 cases, and my Perfectionalis Ultimate Notebook, which is a humongous PDF. If you want to learn about gastrointestinal pharmacology, check out my Utacoids course on my website. If you want to learn about kidney physiology, I have a renal physiology course also on my website, medicosisperfectionalis.com. They are available for instant download. You download them once and keep them for you forever. And for the next 5 lucky students, you can get a 70% discount towards any course on my website by using discount code FISTULA. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, hit the bell, and click on the join button. You can support me here or here. Go to my website to download my courses so that you can take better care of your patients. Be safe, stay happy, study hard. This is Medicosis Perfectionalis, where medicine makes perfect sense.